Hello, and welcome to episode 105 of Relics of Orr. I am your host, Shongaku, and this evening we have a fantastic show about Guild Wars 2, a little bit of Guild Wars 1, in fact, the Guild Wars community, and the massive patch, the burning of Lion Arch. The burning of... yeah, that's what I wanted to say. We're gotta escape from LA, which is kind of exciting. But first, the people who are joining me to talk about this incredible, explosive patch, coming all the way from the frigid East Coast, is Evie. So, Evie,
Hi.
what have you been up to this week? I'm not going to ask you about weather. I'm just going to assume that it's cold.
It's actually not cold right now.
Oh, well, that's good.
You asked me.
So what
And
games...
you asked me about weather.
No,
so...
I made a statement about weather. But, so, Evie, what games have you been playing this week?
Guild Wars 2, lots of Warframe, pretty much it.
Warframe. What's your favorite Warframe?
I'm a man of simple tastes.
Has your Warframe changed since the last time?
My favorite Warframe is still Volt. It always will be, as ineffective as it may be.
Is that the one with lightning everywhere?
Well, Volt.
Oh, yeah. Not Ember, which is the one that burns everything. Ever.
I'm slightly masochistic when it comes to choosing my class, which is why I play a thief, and I like Volt.
There we
I'm
go.
convinced. That's just the way it works.
Also, from the Pacific Northwest, is Grybach, with a fantastic anime poster in the background. What animes have you been watching recently, Grybach? I hear you found a new one.
Yeah, it's currently airing. We just started Log Horizon, which is it's pretty decent. It's an anime about people that are trapped in an MMO, which is a concept that's been done several times, but I enjoy it. Well, not anime, but I marathoned House of Cards Season 2 last Saturday, all in one go with my wife and our friend, so that was pretty exciting.
Very cool. We also will be joined at some point by Washed, but he had a family emergency that has turned him into a gray box. So everyone wave at the gray box. Hi, Washed. But we are not a show about Warframe. We are a show
We're not
about...
a game about shows.
We're not a game about shows. I speak the English good. We are going to talk about... Actually, I have been playing... For what I've been playing, Landmark, Baldur's Gate, Mass Effect 3 multiplayer, Guild Wars Classic, and a little bit of Guild Wars 2. So I've been very busy with my gaming. It's like an hour here on one thing. I'm very ADD. But in Guild Wars 2, there's some news. There was recently the investor call that ArenaNet has to do with NCSoft every year and tell the investors how they're doing. It's actually every quarter. And this was quarter 4 was their most profitable quarter yet. They made a little over $30 million, somewhere in the range of like $33 million, which is quite good. And they had a total of $10 or more for the year. So that almost puts them in the same range as Star Wars: The Old Republic, which made $125 million this past year. So
is that higher than their release month? Because I can't imagine
Yes.
they earned more than they earned in box sales.
Quarter? I'm not sure if that is their highest yet. I think their release month was higher.
They're definitely back up.
But
I don't think it was their highest. They were definitely back up over the last couple months.
Right.
Or last quarter or
well,
two. But,
and this is also this isn't their release year. So we don't have
Sure.
those, so that's not added into this year. So they made $150 million this year, which, that's pretty good. I'd say they're probably recouping costs. I suspect that Dr. Legendary definitady paid for...
Paying for salary for 2 of their employees, for sure.
Yeah, I'm certain Widechar is grateful to him. It's like, he had a little, his paychecks are actually signed by Widechar. By the way, can you guys get into chat now? I recently was able to get in. Although I'm not sure if anyone can actually see anything. So if you guys pop into chat, you can say hi to us. We will be able to hear what you guys have to say, because we love listening to you guys. It is a wonderful thing. And welcome back, Washed. How are you this week?
Hi, everybody. I'm fantastic.
Excellent. We were just talking about the fact that Guild Wars 2 actually is quite profitable.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah,
Just a smidge.
$100 million. That's pretty good. I think they can keep hiring people. They actually,
They announced that, actually.
yeah. It's one thing that whenever there's been a few companies that have had some serious problems this year, and ArenaNet has been right on there, tweeting at them saying, "Hey guys, we have jobs. Come work for us."
Hey, Ned. I need a job.
Evie, if you work at ANET, you can't be on the show anymore. Stop.
You think I care? I'd rather work there.
All right, let me adjust
Hey,
the
just-
four squares really quick, guys. I'm just gonna cut to my face. I'm gonna remove Evie. Oh no, wait.
Didn't the game cost $100 million to make?
I don't know that we ever got
Did
a
we ever-
confirmation
yeah.
on that.
I thought that's what I had heard.
I would-
in
That's
which
about
case,
what I guesstimated at.
they are turning pure profit now.
Well, except you have upkeep costs. It's expensive to
Yeah.
rent those servers.
But they
and pay
recuperated
people.
their original investment, which
which is pretty good.
that's fantastic.
Especially like only
Lot
a
of games.
little more than a year in.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like 5 or 6 years down the road. Okay, look, we made our money back.
It's true.
They did it in a little over a year.
Which I think is good news for us. And if this new patch is anything, any indication, I think they're beginning to fire on all cylinders with the living story.
Well, just looking at our show notes, I don't remember the exact details, but it says 115 million in 2013, but it released in Q4 of 2012. So
Right.
if that's not including their release
not.
quarter,
Nope. No, that's
so
just 2013.
that's a lot. It's a lot more money.
I think
than-
I
than
overestimated by
just
like
for
5 or
Tuesday.
6 million or something in my.
Yeah,
I wouldn't reread the article. It was like 110, but I was like, edit the show notes. No.
Yeah.
Now, to be fair, too, we also have the upcoming release of the China version, which should be very, very huge as well.
So,
Oh,
are we
that's
gonna
gonna make them so much money.
Are we gonna see a South Korea release at some point? You would think that you would see Guild
I'd
Wars 2 in
assume
South
so.
Korea, but I haven't heard anything about it. I mean, NCSoft is South Korean. It was huge in South Korea as far as
Yeah,
like
but
player
ArenaNet's
base.
not NCSoft. I mean,
Well, but Guild Wars 1 was very popular in
It was very
South
popular
Korea.
there.
that's true.
It was not very popular in North Korea, strangely.
Really.
Wonder why.
They never really gave out like sales statistics for that. I don't really know, but I do know one thing that that these sales statistics tell us: they were selling a crap ton of gems. Which
Yeah.
I had an interesting discussion with someone on Reddit this afternoon, and by discussion I kind of ranted. So I would like to apologize to that user on Reddit.
No, you
But
don't.
the point was, I still think I'm right, because what the Reddit user was saying is we were talking about I'm going to talk about it on the show, so clearly I think I'm right. The Reddit user said, "Hey, it was discussing like how you can use the new box of chocolates, which interestingly enough, you equip with your armor, so it doesn't turn you. So you basically get an equipable item that does not put you into town clothes, which I think is interesting." So some people have been guessing about what that's going to cause, but.
Wait, what?
So when you buy the box of chocolates off the gem store, which
Mm-hmm.
was the new item, it does not put you into town clothes when you equip it. You actually stay in your armor set.
Yeah, which is
So
pretty nice.
some people are speculating that we
Okay.
are beginning to see a shift away from town clothes and more towards everything just being armor, which could be quite exciting if we start getting our town clothes as armor. There's some town clothes that I'm like, yeah, those would be cool as armor.
And I want to point out that from a design perspective, that's actually a pretty smart way to handle the compromise, because they want people they want this concept of profession silhouettes, where you can easily identify what profession somebody is by a glance. And to some extent, give me a second, Evie. To some extent, there's it's by class, or it's by weight, but not by class. But each class also has tells that are included with their armor. So armor gets you the weight class that they're in, and then some specific tells help you there. And one of the problems with having things like in Guild Wars 1, the costume system, is that it completely eliminates the silhouette, because your class doesn't determine anything about how you look other than your armor for the most part. And that's why in Guild Wars 1 you couldn't use costumes in things like PvP. But with this kind of a system, since it's a double clickable item, they can just disable the ability to use that in World v World and PvP and retain that where it matters. Whereas if they worked like a transmutation skin, that can be potentially problematic. And so, I mean, there are some gem store armors, but they're visually distinct, whereas this would let you be able to have one armor that fits all types of classes as a skin on.
So what you're telling me is that I have a butt cape on my thief so that I can be identified as a medium class.
Yes.
That's what butt capes
They
do,
need to-
Evie. That is
We
how
need to
that
find
works. That is
a
science.
better thing than butt capes.
Sure, it doesn't have
That's
to be
all I
butt
gotta
capes, but the thing is that's why the armors look visually distinct by class, is so that it helps you aid in telling what you're looking at.
Yeah.
And most games that have any kind of considerable focus on PvP have that concept of you can tell at a glance basically what you're fighting without, like, before you actually start fighting them.
Yeah, and the point of the actual discussion was that you can use the shrinking on the chocolate box to get your character out of the frame, and so you can take pictures, basically as if it was first person. So people are trying to find all these workarounds, because guess what? People want to take pictures in first person mode. I don't know why. It might just be easier. But, so they were discussing it, and one person was like, you know what would be really awesome? Is if Arena introduced a camera on the store for like 600 gems, and then it would put you into first-person mode. I kind of went off and was like, basic functionality like that should never be.
Never.
And then he was like, but I just buy it with gold, so that's not like I'm using gems, except for the fact that someone had to pay for those gems, so you're actually, like, sure, it's a two-step process, but ultimately that functionality then only gets into the game by someone spending money. And so, regardless of if gold is spent to get it, any item on the gem store can only enter into the game functionally is if people spend money beyond the box. And so you have to keep that in mind when you're saying, oh, this is okay for the gem store because I'm just going to buy it with gold.
Yeah, it's all about setting precedents.
But that's not how that works. Just because you can buy the gems with gold, that item still only gets into the economy through money, real-world money beyond the box. So just
That
think
would be
about
like
that when you're
saying-
saying something's okay.
Yeah, I mean, that would be like saying, hey, we've got this extra weapon set that you can have if you pay us 2,000 gems.
Ascended
now you've
weapon
created
set.
So now you've created a lot of imbalance, too. I mean, that's a really slippery slope. I mean, features are one thing, but man, can you imagine if they even went further than that?
So that was my rant about the economy. But
and like the only way that I could see it possibly being okay, and I wouldn't even really like it, but is if for some, because in the beta clients, they've had the ability to toggle first person since release, and it's not in the main game, and I don't know why that is, but it could be that there's bugs with it in combat and things like that, and if they can't nail it down to work in combat, and they had to make the compromise and say, okay, you can go into first person, but only for screenshots, so you have to be out of combat, basically works like town clothes, all those types of things, so that you couldn't use it anywhere in combat, then I could potentially see that as a gem store item. I don't think it's a good precedent either, but the precedent of having things that are purely for aesthetics that don't have any functionality for if you're moving around or if you're doing, I mean, you know, if there was a technical reason that you wouldn't be allowed to use it everywhere, maybe, but even then, that's a pretty poor corner case example. Like, overall, I wouldn't be fond of selling things that I would still consider features.
yeah, and one thing that Live Spartan said, side note, is that they are definitely looking at expanding into completely changing
South Korea.
topics. This is a horrible linking sentence. So the linking sentence I wanted to go with was, so speaking of the gem store, they did recently add some Zodiac armor in, which is sort of Asian inspired ish, kind of, not really, but
Not really.
it says Zodiac, so it's Asian inspired, right? And they are looking to
But it was
expand
Cantha
into
inspired.
yeah, they're looking to expand into South Korea after China. So they want to get the big dog first. But what do you guys think of the new skins?
I absolutely adore them. If they didn't turn my character model blue.
But wait, you don't want to be Dr. Manhattan?
No.
Oh,
I mean,
Although
you
I
show
did
about
do
as
a
much
giant
skin.
Appendages hanging down, running around. Yeah. Oh.
Nice eyebrow wiggle there, Grybog.
Clearly, you're talking about giant blue char tails.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
clearly. Por supuesto. So, you guys have had a chance to look at them. I hear that the char one actually looks awesome. Is this true?
Yes.
I haven't seen the char.
Because there's
one.
like
haven't
the
seen the
fur
char.
pattern and everything. It's actually really well done for the char. It's
Nice.
just there's the one model and you lose all character customization and the
Aw.
no.
Well, can you break it into individual pieces?
Yes.
Even
Yeah.
so, though, it's
Well, the pieces that like are the best are the chest piece and the pants.
yeah, it's true.
It's like
So,
Yeah,
here's a question.
I think most people are not super crazy about the fact that you lose your skin, which means that you lose like you said, so much of your character customization. I feel like the only time that I would be okay with losing my skin is if there was a really, really kick-ass effect on it. Like if your skin turned out to look like Twilight or Twilight or Sunrise or something crazy like that. Like I could maybe see losing my skin to be like some sort of crazy super magic like abyss badass.
Like the thing
but-
in the Thermanova fractal.
Yeah, something crazy like that, or like turn you ghostly. Like I would totally buy a ghostly armor for one of my characters, but just blue. I do like that it has kind of a little like shiny blue aura, but yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the skin being
So-
just kind of like a matte sheen, blue gradient.
You had a theory about that, though, Grybach. Why do you thought that there was a reason that they went with the blue skin? Why do you think that is?
I don't know that that's exactly a theory, but it is true to some extent that it lets them have more suggestive looking armor. If you imagine that your character did not have the blue skin and just had their skin, there would be a lot hanging out, as it were, especially for female characters, to the extent that it wouldn't make sense from a physical perspective, and there would be boobular issues. And that sort
Just
of
saying.
circumvents that. Yeah, and that sort of circumvents that to essentially say like it's a bodysuit and it's blue to make it super obvious that's what happened. That is what's happening, and this is
it's magical armor that covers you from head to toe.
right. And Evie was saying, and I would agree, this is some of the skimpiest male armor if you considered blue to be what your skin is. So, to some extent, it could be testing the waters for how much people would wear what appears to be really suggestive armor for men, although, as Evie said, most of the people that would want to do that are really into how their character actually looks, and so the blue skin is just enough.
So I've got it up on
the
the stream right now, and yeah, that's like a Norn might blush wearing some of that.
Yeah.
There's the guy. The guy, it's definitely showing him a lot of skin. It's probably about as much as the feathered.
It's more than feathered.
Yeah, feathered for
lot
guys
more
isn't
than feathered.
nearly as revealing as it is for women.
Is it really that much more for guys? It doesn't look like the light armor
The
doesn't
feathered
really look
set-
that much.
The feathered set for guys completely covers your arms.
Oh, that is true.
And like the shoulders are completely covered. The only thing that really shows is like the midriff and like part of the chest.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
weird.
It's like abs.
The
and a
middle
little bit of
armor is just like,
pecs.
what? Oh, wow. Okay, so you're right. The medium armor. But you still have that butt cape, Evie, so that they can know that you are a medium armor class. That's important. Oh my goodness, the Azura looks like an alien. Has just beamed down.
They already look like aliens.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah,
Here we go.
best race in the game.
Women are still just falling out of this thing.
Except humans are the aliens in Guild Wars.
It's true.
Wouldn't surprise me if Asurans were at some point too, considering they have friggin' Stargates.
Except they started underground, and the
Yeah,
Stargates
they
Yeah, but we
weren't
don't know if they
Stargates.
started underground or if they Stargated into underground.
That
We know that we
needs to be a
discovered them from
discussion.
underground.
We will have to discuss that at some point.
There's not any evidence either way. Like
Yeah.
they just sort of appeared one day. I mean, we know that they were underground previous to us discovering them, but we have no idea what their origin.
I think they evolved underneath Tyria. I think that there was a subterranean salamander that eventually got really smart. Being as I believe Arena has
Are
verified
they the
that
descendants of Script?
No, I
they're a
don't think
Skrit
so.
salamander hybrid. That's right, guys. You heard it here first.
Scrit for brains.
Oh, those Skrit. They are a pretty crazy bunch of people, and they're pretty amazing when they're in a group. And I will have to say that Dub is actually pretty similar to that, just because you get a whole bunch of people together, and you just go and smash. And pretty much that's how we work.
It's
in
like some
World
sort of
versus
hive
World.
mind.
Yeah. I mean, that's how the Zerg is. The Zerg is basically a demonstration of Skrit. And recently, Dub has come up with some new information about the upcoming Season 2, which is going to be very different, apparently. Grybach, what exactly is going on with that?
So basically the changes are they're making a lot of changes. Just to address before, I guess, the matchmaking, they do sound like they took back a lot of feedback about the how difficult it was to acquire certain achievements in the meta events, and that some of them seemed pretty ridiculously long and or luck based on how good your server is. A lot of them weren't that bad, but a couple of them you were just grinding, like supply camps. Like that was a lot of supply camps, or Doliacs. I don't remember which one it was. And the mercenary camp. Some of those took a lot of time compared to any of the other ones, and so it sounds like they're trimming back a lot of those. And I think I also read that every achievement was going to have a loot chest, if I recall correctly, which
That's
is
correct.
a pretty cool and interesting way of motivating people to do those different aspects. And it sounds like they're improving the season rewards a bit and having an exclusive item to having done World v World stuff and gotten the meta achievement, and like equipment, not mini pet, which I think is a great idea. Both as a not World v World player and as a World v World player, it's nice for them to get something to show off.
Because Lord knows they've not gotten anything. So
Yeah, exactly. And then as far as the structure, it sounds like what they're doing is they're calling it a tournament now instead of a season, and that's largely because of the way that they're going to be doing matchmaking. So where before it was a season because you went round robin and you faced every other league or every other server, in this one it's going to have weighted matchups where it's going to start out possibly with some seeding, and you're going to do your first week, and then the two winners, or like the winners will move up into a winners bracket and the losers will move into a losers bracket, and the winners will keep fighting the winners, and so you'll basically always be fighting people with similar win-loss records to yourself. And so it's entirely possible and even probable, I would say, that several servers will never match up against each other because, one server will lose its first couple and one of them will win its first couple, and they'll probably never meet again. And I guess the reason that they do that is that, first of all, a lot of people were really frustrated by having rewards for being the top server in their tier system before, when they didn't really have much control over that. Like if one server just happened to basically get more matches against easy, steamroll servers, then they got more points by default without having to work for it. And that's not fun for being steamrolled either. If you're not one of the top 3 servers, you generally are just going to get destroyed by the top 3, 4, 5 servers. So it sounds, but I guess the other thing though is that's sort of similar to how it already is, in that they kind of have a weighted matching system. So we'll see how it turns out, but I feel like it's probably going to be better for the competition level, because I don't know. How have you guys noticed that on your servers?
Ours is, Northern Sugar Peaks is still pretty low. Evie, does this get you more interested or less interested into trying WW during the season?
I don't like WW because of the gameplay type. It's not a thing of the competition or anything. It's just not an appealing game type to me.
So with the new ticketed rewards and things like that, does that actually entice you in any way? Or are you still like, nope, just don't like WW?
I just don't like it.
So,
if I don't enjoy it, I'm not going to play it.
Okay.
I play games because I enjoy them. So.
How about you, Washed? Do the rewards entice you?
No, unfortunately not. I mean, same thing. I didn't participate in season 1. I'm just not a World v Worlder. So it's just not something I'm interested in or care to, smash my head against, frankly.
I enjoy jumping in and beating up a few guys occasionally. playing a
know-
necromancer, I get a.
It's really
That's
fun on that.
what I
so
go
wonderful.
into SPVV for.
Oh my
Yeah.
I
goodness.
play tournaments there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
it's like when you get chased halfway across a map by like a warrior and an elementalist, and then two thieves show up and they still can't kill you.
That just sounds annoying
Just
to me.
feels
See,
good.
but that means you're playing on something that can actually do that.
Well, yeah, but I mean, if you're playing a necromancer properly, almost every necro build should be able to
Yeah.
do something like that.
Yeah.
I was on a conditioned DPS build, and I still managed to do that. So
Nice.
that's fun. So for necromancers, I
Thank you.
enjoy it. Grybach, how about yourself? Is this gonna pull you in?
Well, I actually did season 1, and I actually really enjoyed it. The only thing I really didn't enjoy was that because of the rank system, I basically had to only do it on one character.
Yeah.
And I didn't choose my necromancer because I wanted to have an excuse to play my thief or something. Even though I love playing necromancer in World v World, but when they do the world or the account bound world experience, I'm gonna be extremely excited. I do think it's really good though, because there's definitely a population of people like myself and like yourself that kind of enjoy it. We don't want to do it 24/7, but it gives us a decent incentive and reward structure to work towards. But at the same time, the rewards aren't so so ridiculous that people like Wash and Eevee feel compelled to do something they don't enjoy.
Yeah.
And I think that's great. I think it's great to have things that people that enjoy it can show off without making people that don't enjoy it feel like they get screwed for not enjoying it. But that there is something that shows I do a lot of World v World or.
So
you know,
here's
those
a
types of
question
things.
too, because I know this was a concern during the events leading up to the first season. Was people were trying to rig their matches? Do you think this will help eliminate some of that?
Yeah, you can't really. I mean, I don't know how you can really rig it in the sense that.
Well,
it's,
if they
it's
still
winners,
use-
well,
If they still use gold, silver, and bronze tiers, yes.
that's true.
Because
Yeah,
that's how Northern Silver Peaks ended up in silver tier.
In silver when they should have been in bronze.
yeah. I don't know how they can really fix that, other than if they really specifically look and see if they're fixing it. But my guess would be that they just go purely off of statistics, which, are. Yeah, I
Stats are
don't really know
stats,
how stats are stats. I don't really know how they're going to address that issue.
Yeah, that should be pretty interesting. I'm definitely looking forward to running around and definitely running away from people and escaping, which is something that we're going to be doing a lot of in the next few weeks as we try to escape from Lion's Arch. Although, so the patch came out, and that's right. I'm going to just stop and acknowledge linking sentences. Booyah! I'm getting better, just because Eevee started cracking up. Anyways, so Lion's Arch is under attack. I think we escaped actually in like the opening cutscene. Which, how did you guys like that? What did you guys think of the cutscene, Eevee?
Well, I know it was pre-rendered. I know a pre-rendered cutscene when I see it, and I have absolutely no problem with it. The problem I do have with that cutscene...
Wait, so you do have a
What's
problem
the-
with it?
Yes, I do. Is that there's no voiceover. Where
That's
is
kinda
that
weird.
epic voiceover? That's it. That's my only problem with it. There
Yeah.
should have been some epic voiceover, but like, it's going down.
They do have that voice recorded talking about the destruction of Lion's Arch.
Yeah.
And they did zoom in on top of the funnel of doom to where our good friend Scarlet
Funnel?
is. Yeah,
It's the screwdriver
Oh,
of
oh,
yeah.
well,
descent.
it's kind of like a funnely screwdriver thing.
It's probably going to pierce some heavens.
Pierce
Anybody?
what?
Yeah, see, Eevee gets it.
I didn't get it. Wait, I don't get the joke. I want to get.
Never mind.
Okay. All right. So, anyways, there's a funnel screwdriver of doom, and that's pretty exciting. You guys, so you've gone in. We saw that it was a little bit low res. I heard, and I did see it. It did seem a little bit low res, which seemed weird. But do you think that's just to minimize the download?
It wasn't that long of a cutscene. The
I
actual
say, I don't
cinematic
know.
is not going to be that
I-
much.
I don't think it was much of a like minimizing the download as much as it was making sure that people with lower end systems get a decent cutscene.
Cool.
But here's my thing. I mean, if you're able to render the game, you should be able to render a pre-figured cutscene.
pre-rendered cutscenes are much easier on graphics cards
Yeah.
than doing the game world. So even if you're running on min specs, you can probably run it at a higher definition than
Well,
that.
exactly. The cutscene was pre-rendered. That's why.
No, but that's what I'm. So it should be easier to have higher graphics in the cutscene,
Right.
not worse graphics.
So it is a bit weird that it was low res. That said, still very cool. A lot of explosions and fire going everywhere. And
It was definitely cool.
It was pretty cool to see the airships moving and stuff, and just like bombarding. And I was like, oh, are they gonna zoom in through the window of the ship? And then it was just a cannon, but that was still cool. So
Still awesome though.
speaking, and so they have just wrecked Lion's Arch. It is. Did you guys expect this much destruction?
I expected more.
Okay,
did
Evie
too.
expected it to be rubbleized. I was
Nah,
not
this is about
expecting.
what I expected.
Look. I went through the sewers expecting like cave-ins and all this. The sewers are completely intact. That blew my mind.
Really? I haven't been down there yet.
So the sewers survived. Well, but they've only been bombarding with cannons. You wouldn't think that necessarily what they've done. Like, they haven't lasered anything yet with, like, Uber lasers or anything, and the marionette hasn't
The
shown
Uber
up.
laser that like destroyed the statue and took out that arch and stuff. There's plenty of like heavy stuff going on there.
Oh, that's true. They did kind of... Yeah, it probably should have... It probably should have had a little bit of rubble in the sewers, I guess. Maybe.
Unless the
I'm-
masonry of the sewers
I'm gonna
is
guess
held up by,
personal
like,
story
magic.
reasons because you have to go into there for all the personal stories.
Except for you don't
Yeah.
have
The
to go...
personal stories.
Go ahead, Evie.
They have NPCs outside of Lion's Arch and Ganjaran Fields. If you have a personal story in Lion's Arch, you don't actually go in Lion's Arch. You just talk to one of those NPCs.
So for the part where you
But then
swim
they-
down and find Zaitan's minions underneath in the
Yeah, I
combat
say, but
portion of
you
that
still
one,
go into the city. It's just an instanced copy
it's
of
just
it,
an
right?
instance version of the city.
But
Yeah,
it's
that's
an
fair.
instance of old Lion's Arch.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's true.
Which is
Understandable.
something we'll talk about in a little bit. But so far, what has stood out to you guys? Wash, what has stood out to you in this current battle?
Things everywhere. I mean, they weren't kidding when they said it would not be safe. I mean, you can't really zone anywhere in there without Aether Blades or Bolt Alliance or something going on.
I
So-
faced all four factions at the same
At
time.
the same
one
time,
point.
yeah.
It was-
Yeah, I mean, it is nuts. I mean, there is so much going on right now that it's fantastic. Yeah, I'm enjoying it personally. But
Evie?
that's my favorite part.
Evie, what's standing out to you right now?
that no one's rescuing citizens and they're just running to a Zerg.
It depends on which server you're on. Washed server got 1,500 on his first try.
16.
That just needs a round of applause. Come on, guys. That's
It
impressive.
was an overflow, to be fair, but dang, that
Your
was impressive for an
overflow was
overflow.
so impressive.
I'm impressed. Grybog's like, I already completed it perfectly 30 times.
No,
No, you
no.
didn't.
Hey, I'm on the West Coast, man. I only had 40 minutes to play it after work, so I have barely even scratched the surface.
Yeah, before I
of this.
drag
I
you
don't
out and
think
like, let's go play a
anyone-
show. Do a
I don't
show.
think
right.
anyone's had more than one or two tries because of when the
Yeah.
patch hit. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
'cause
patch
it
hit, like,
later.
I came home, I sat down in front of my computer, I turned it on, and I checked Twitter, and they're like, the game is now live. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And it was.
Yeah, you could have done it about 3 times exactly by the time 3, 4, 5. Yeah, you could have done it about 3 times if you were really sitting there ramming on it.
Yeah. I personally really like the bad guys that we're fighting. I think that they are quite cool. They are complex. They have some very interesting moves that they make. I saw one Char, use a giant, it looked like a giant flaming tuning fork, and he would just
Really?
stand at the edge of a group and just sort of smash in the ground. And you know those fire waves that was in the dungeon, the molten facility? He shot those through the Zerg, and it was just hilarious because it
Wow.
would go through and it's an instant down, and so people are just exploding everywhere. I'm like sitting behind him with my little Necro life siphon dagger going poke, 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 and then my flesh golem goes and like charges him down, and I'm like, yeah, I'm totally winning, and then he turns around and like he's like, fire.
I helped.
It was a lot of fun actually, because I took him
Poke,
down
poke.
with a little bit of help from a guardian. and a horse. Get along with a little bit of
But it was
help from my
mostly the
horse.
Guardian.
It was it was mostly the Guardian probably.
Let's be honest.
I from what I could see, he had perfected just like rolling his face across the keyboard because his skills were firing just constantly. It was amazing. So he might have even had a Stairmaster, which remember you just take a keyboard, chuck it down the stairs, and that's how you play a Guardian. Call back to the first part to before you guys joined the show back in 2012. How to play a Guardian. That was our first pro tip of Guild Wars 2.
Grab your keyboard, chuck it down your stairs.
And if you want to be really pro,
Profit.
get a Stairmaster. It was amazing. So I really like, though, the AI. I think that the combat, that the skills, the combo, and just everything there really makes you have to play very effectively and and be on the ball, even when you're in a Zerg, which I liked. I found that it was best for me to get at the edge of the Zerg and then dance around because the Zerg was just like, we're exploding.
In a lot of ways, it reminds
So
me of
many
World v
effects.
World. Like, you kill things way faster than you do in WW, but just that chaos of having tons of enemies that if you're looking at any individual enemy, you can see their tells, but there's so many different ones happening at the same time that there's no way to watch all of it. And it is kind of like a beautiful chaos. I mean, it was really fun when I was just, it was incredibly hectic. It was fun. There was things spawning everywhere. They're doing all sorts of attacks, all sorts of AI. It was a necromancer's dream if you have AoE stuff.
Condition
So
all the
good.
things.
Yeah,
Amazing.
I run Wells and Staff primarily, so I have huge AoEs, and there was stuff everywhere. There were things that were, making huge AoE immunities, so I had to like wait for them to drop those before I could hit them. It was great. It was a combination of all of the Living Stories mechanics into one, and I would call it so far the most fun open world Zerg content because of the mixture and also the size. Unlike when we were doing the invasions, Lion's Arch is a much smaller zone than a lot of the invasion zones, and it is a lot easier to fight all sorts of things all over the place. And the fact that Lion's Arch is so familiar to so many of us, we know where we're going. Most people have mapped the world at least once, but I think most of you would all agree that if we go to some random zone, and be like, I don't know where I am. Like, I've been here once maybe, but I don't know where I'm going. But in Lion's Arch, you know exactly where you are, and you know
Because
exactly
people
where you're
AFK'd
going.
there for hours on end.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. I'm really enjoying it so
It's
far.
fun to go through and see just every place that they've pretty much nuked all the surface content. The jumping puzzles are still intact. You can still get to them. You have to be a little bit creative to get to Troll's End, which I think is kind of cool. You have to go up to where the kid used to be hiding. So, and you also
okay.
you have to actually start at that portal in from Gandharan Fields, go east, and then jump down onto the wood planks, and it
Well
works
thing,
quite
yeah.
well. Yeah. And then you jump
That's
down
cool.
into the well thing. It's quite a cool. It's multi-step. It's more interesting. So that was I enjoyed
Little more
finding
jumpy
and
puzzle.
seeing. Yeah, they've added a few interesting jumping puzzles. Now the core of this is there's a lot of events going on. And there's two sort of different kinds of events, it looks like. There's the shut down the gas chambers, miasma chambers, and get people out. And the miasma chambers, as far as I can tell, they don't actually do anything aside from they create a area of danger if you don't shut them down, where a bunch of stuff is spawning. And if you shut them down, then that sort of frees up that spot. But what your key
It's probably
is...
one of those that's supposed to, but
Yeah, I don't know exactly what it's doing, but the key is to get people out of Lion's Arch. That's what you want. You want to get 1,500 citizens out of Lion's Arch. So,
Something like
Wash,
that, yeah.
what sorts of events are going on in there to get the citizens out?
There's
Well,
the
you've got-
escorts with the Dolly Axe.
yeah,
Oh,
there's
but-
escorting the Doliacs, which helps increase that. You actually have NPCs that are just dead all around the zone, so rezzing NPCs and encouraging them to flee to safety is another objective that you have to do. There are several events that are just specifically like, hey, push back these invaders. There's NPCs that are buried under rubble, which is kind of cool. You just go over and it's like any other interactable. You go over and you hit F on it, and you clear away the rubble, and out pops an NPC. So there's a lot of that going on. I mean, lots and lots of
Pro
like
tip.
protect. Go
Real
ahead.
quick. On the rubble, there are people under rubble in the, like, behind the sewers, in where the Whispers area used to be. They're
Oh,
hiding.
really? Okay.
So go back
That's
there.
good to know.
There's no enemies back there, but there are people in rubble.
So get them out of the
Cool.
rubble. Rubble. I did get a rubble reference in there.
One of the really interesting events is you have to encourage the children. I only came in at the tail end of that, so I'm not 100% sure. But
Apparently, an orphanage decided that they were going to take their field trip to Lion's Arch that day. And it's the orphanage, I do believe, from Divinity's Reach that gets attacked.
Oh, the one I let burn down? Yeah, that one.
yeah, that one.
attacked
Yeah.
by the bandits. So
That's
those
awesome.
orphans have terrible luck.
Those
Yeah.
are orphans.
Speaking of visiting Lion's Arch, did you guys see that somebody made it a character named Lion's Arch Tourist?
Oh
And
no.
they were like, I've just gotten here on my first vacation in years. Like walking around in map chat this morning. It was really funny.
That's
They-
awesome.
Yeah. Oh man.
I know
They
people
were
were
just joking around.
So awesome.
Hunter from
today.
Hunter's Insight decided to RP a Lion Guard, and so he got some Lion Guard gear on, and was wandering around the town going, "Oh man, it's my last day to retire." And then someone on the server, yeah, it's like, "I'm gonna retire in 2 days." It's like, oh, that's awesome.
Pretty much.
I think
So-
he said that he got on top of the bank and then popped open a keg and a banquet. And
That's awesome. I saw a lot of people doing that.
That's awesome. So
Yeah.
a lot
it's
of
it really is good stuff.
a lot of cool stuff. I hear that there's a giant worm fight going on in there as well somewhere. Am I wrong?
Yeah,
super
there's
giant, but yeah.
there's a worm that'll spawn near the Gandorn no, not Gandorn, the Lorner's Pass portal.
Lorner's Pass, yeah.
And it's basically a champion. It's nothing too big.
Yeah, there's nothing really special about it.
Oh well,
So-
I was all excited.
But
I was
there's a
like,
waypoint
there's
that you
another
can warp
jungle
right
worm
to it.
head pops off.
Yeah, no, you
It's a
can.
toxic worm.
It's a toxic worm. So, like we saw in, I can't think of the place, Kazakh's Hills. You know,
Oh, okay.
those ones popped up there. So,
Very cool. So definitely a lot of stuff going on there. And one of the things that someone on Reddit mentioned is we talked about earlier how they have relocated the. I'm looking forward to exploring more of it, and we'll keep telling you guys about it next week more as we have more time to experience it. But one thing that they talked about and that we've talked about is that the Living Story has been relocated. So they have changed Lion's Arch enough to where the Living Story actually had to
A
be
personal story.
relocated. Sorry, you're right.
Personal
Personal
story,
story. Very different than Living Story. The personal story has been relocated. And that was one thing that they've talked about in other zones where they said we're reticent to change the zone because of how it affects the living story or the personal story. I'll get these two things
We've
right
been
at
saying
some
living
point.
story so much the past year that it's hard
yeah,
to-
yeah, it's understandable.
Yeah. So the personal story, and this one person on Reddit said, what could be interesting is, okay, if they're willing to do this with Lion's Arch, and if Lion's Arch is going to be so different that you have to keep these personal story NPCs out there, could they possibly do it to Orr?
I have a feeling that's and I hate to throw this word out, that the whole Lion's Arch situation is going to be temporary, and that's why they were willing
It
to do
is,
it.
I think.
So you think we're going to go back to identical previous Lion's Arch?
Very, very, very similar.
Yeah,
See, I have a,
99% similar.
yeah, I mean, I have a feeling
So
it's
they
going to
can
be
say
like
it's
when the
changed forever without actually changing all that much.
yeah. Well, and just like they had to rebuild the lion statue, and that took months and months and months. I have a feeling that's what we'll see. Is that things will slowly, a lot of scaffolding around, a lot of stuff under construction, and then eventually within 6 months or whatever, it'll probably get back.
I hope it
For the
gets
way it is.
burned down and becomes a dangerous zone full of dragon minions and doom. That's my running hope.
I mean, well,
Yeah, honestly, I would kind of like for it to get 90% rebuilt, but actually establish all of the hub resources in a different new place and build something new elsewhere, so that you can sort of have the map back for fun and for to have
Pink
for
Day in LA.
posterity. Right, sure. But that we could evolve the world and say, after Lion's Arch fell, everybody moved, everybody set up a new hub, and now that we've set it up, and established it over 6 months or whatever, we're not going to move back to Lion's Arch because we don't have a purpose to. And so, yeah, you could rebuild Lion's Arch for the people that live there, but you could have the Mystic Forge and all the crafting stations and the bank and the trading post anywhere else. And I think that would be really interesting. Yeah, right. I think that'd be really interesting.
Radasum. Radasum does have a port.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Yeah. I think that'd be a really interesting possibility. I mean,
I'd be cool with them
I would
moving to
enjoy that.
Radasum. That'd be neat. Give us player housing down in the lower levels as they dig it out.
Here we go.
just throwing that out there. But it should be pretty cool. One thing that they have rewarded us with, I want to hear what you guys think. You can take off the tinfoil hat. We're going to talk about real things, Evie. The
I'm
new back
protecting
piece.
myself from you.
What do you guys think about the new back piece in this content? Have you guys seen this?
It's interesting.
It is very neat. Go ahead and describe it, Evie. I'm going to go ahead and get an image for all of you folk on the Twitch. But Evie,
I
yeah,
don't think
go
he
ahead and
heard
tell
you.
us about it.
It's spider legs for your back, made out of metal.
So, but the way that you get it, I think, is quite fascinating. How exactly
I
does
actually
this get built?
don't know how you get it.
Washed Grybach? How is it built?
It's crafted out of the Mystic Forge,
kind of.
but
It's
it's weird.
I would say it's most similar to the Mad King's Memoirs, in which you get pieces for doing the living story content, and then you assemble them in multiple stages to upgrade it. So there's 3 versions of it. There's the version that basically looks kind of like the
There's actually
jetpack.
4.
There's 4? I thought there was
Yeah.
no legs, 2 legs, and 4 legs.
There's
And
no
there's-
legs,
there's
and then there's
multiple
glowing.
colors.
Then there's
Yeah.
4 different colors of glow you can get based on the stats that you select for the ascended version.
Oh, okay, whatever. But I mean, yeah, the glows are different, but
It's essentially the
model-wise.
same version.
There's 3 models for with different color variations, but yeah. So you get the first piece, and then you basically, I don't know the exact way that you do it, but there's basically I don't remember what they're called, but they're these little pieces that basically are metal scraps or shards that you combine, I believe, in the Mystic Forge, and you combine them with the back piece to basically add legs onto it, and then eventually you can ascend it, I guess, which gives it different colored glows. I think it's a great conceptual idea for a backpack. I don't. It doesn't fit the aesthetic of any of my characters, and that's sort of a running complaint, or not a complaint, but a running issue that we're having is that we're not really getting that many new armors, but we're getting a lot of new back pieces that don't necessarily fit with any of the armor that we have in a lot of cases.
Wear that sucker
Or
with the
cla-
gas
yeah.
mask. You need your super techno character to wear that.
Well, at least like the gas mask. I mean, I've seen some kind of cool gas mask characters that have trench coats. I know Evie hates them, but
There's actually a whole
there's
thread
some.
on the.
They're not
forum
trench
about
coats, they're butt capes.
Well, there's trench coats too. There's both.
Evie's so angry
Butt
about
capes.
those. Look
They're
at him.
all butt capes.
He's just lagging out. He's so angry.
Yeah, I mean it's a cool proof of concept, but I would love to see a full armor set that's of that style. And we've gotten so many times where we've gotten, shoulders and gloves. Like, it's
There's
a little
shoulders and
odd.
gloves coming for this, probably.
Yeah, I think there are.
I would
yeah.
assume so.
I mean, I've seen them linked plenty, so the item code is there.
Yeah.
Yeah. The interesting thing is, I would say that hopefully they will eventually take all the player feedback and not give you butt capes. And maybe someday that will be a topic in the collaborative development initiative of, hey, we hate butt capes, can we get something else?
Anything
Though
else,
they are doing
please.
they did change up a little bit for the new CDI that's coming out, where they are going to be talking about what happened is they actually decided, ArenaNet talked to people, and they decided that we're going to be getting that ArenaNet would choose the upcoming topics for the CDI. And what they picked is they picked discussing evolution of fractals, they discussed league system in SPVP, and how do you think Edge of the Mist could carry over into current Dub v Dub. And so I'm going to just ask you guys these questions. How would you like to see them evolve fractals? I have a very different, I think it's almost a tangent, but I think it works. But Washed, what would you like to see from fractals? How would you like to see them changed? If you wanted to improve the content. You no idea? Do you run fractals?
I think they really need to work on balancing out the various paths. And I'm sure that's going to come up
Dredge.
a lot. Exactly, and that is the number one thing that people point to is the dredge fractal. The biggest suggestion, I think, and I agree with what other people have said, cut it in half. It really almost needs to be two separate instances.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, because right now, I mean, I do a little bit of dungeon running, and I know I can get in there, I can do a run in like 15 to 20 minutes, whereas fractals, it's like, it could be a 40-minute run, or it could be a 15-minute
Hour
run.
and a half,
It's
right,
for
yeah.
players that don't have a specific amount of time to play. It's a crapshoot. It's a gamble. Like, do I want to get in and do my daily fractal, or do I want to go do, Crucible of Eternity that I know I can get done in 10 minutes? So, I think balancing out the time requirements on those fractals will be a big step towards improving them.
Evie, what would you like to see added into or done changing in fractals?
First of all, revamp the reward system to
Yeah.
make it much more rewarding consistently, as well as comparatively to the time investment. And also allow progression within fractals alone. Right now, once you get to a certain level of fractals, you have to go into crafting. And I hate crafting. So I literally have not gotten past a certain level of fractal because I do not want to craft that armor. And I'm not crafting weapons.
Grybach?
And similarly, on that note, off on a
That was
tangent.
just a long pause. Okay, keep going.
He knows that I'm
On-
going to talk forever, so go on.
Exactly. So on that tangent, people that want Ascended armor should be able to get it without going into fractals. That's just me, though.
I agree with that.
Vice versa, I assume is what you meant. It's
Well,
Ascended from
both
crafting.
ways. Everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
All the things.
All the
It
ways,
should not be
all the paths.
exact.
Yeah.
Exactly. And lastly, right now with the progression of fractals, people are skipping a ton of levels.
Yeah.
Oh,
I really think they need to find a way to fix that, because it basically ruins the point of having the different challenges
Instabilities.
for each level.
I'm not sure if I agree with that. I mean, sure. Yeah, you can work out.
Unless they make each
It makes
one
it
its own
interesting for
levels,
people
not like
that-
a progression system.
So people are always going to find a super easy way to do it, but the people who actually want to do it properly, I know quite a few people who what they do is they get together and they progress level to level to level, and they want to do it that way, and because they want to overcome all the different instabilities. If someone wants to basically just jump to the front of the line, okay, fine, but these other people are
Okay,
playing it
but
because they want to play the
people that-
content.
Okay, but those people that do go through the effort of going into every single level, what do they get for that effort other than being able to just say, oh, hey, we did it?
Do they need
There's
a reward?
no tangible reward. There's no what?
Do they need a reward? Do they need like something physical?
It doesn't even have to be physical. It can be just oh, hey, I finished, some way to show that they finished it.
10-point achievement for each instability that you unlock. You
Very
actually
simple.
complete it.
That
There you
doesn't
go.
exist right now.
Done and done. That's, yeah, okay, I can see why that would be is sort of an issue. Grybach, you seem to have... My idea is completely, like, left field. So Grybach, go for it, and then I'll go into mine.
Well, I would definitely say first and foremost, both of the things that Wash and Evie said. I think the rewards are abysmal in Fractals, and they are one of the few instances in the game where it is purely RNG, and to a bad extent. Just a terror. I mean, I oppose RNG as the sole method of acquiring things. As a whole, if those things are, I mean, yeah, fractal weapons specifically are ridiculous. But even getting your ring drops or getting other ascended armor or weapon drops, because they can drop in fractals, just terrible odds. All of those things, and then of course mixing them with the time reward element. Yeah, there's all sorts of things like that I would fix. If I had to have it go in a new direction, one, well, sort of similar to what they were saying about the skipping, I actually wish that personal reward level would just go away, and it would just be highest level you've completed, and you get rewarded for the level that you complete. Because there is literally no reason, if I am at personal reward 25 and I do a fractal level 36, that I should get level 25 rewards for doing level 36 content. And there's no reason that if I can complete fractal 36 that I should have to do it 12 more times to get from 24 to 36 before I start getting rewarded for 36, which to some extent is going to be even more, talking about Evie's complaint about people skipping. Yeah, people will skip even easier then, but at the same time, like, well, if you implement a reward system for actually doing each fractal, then that's even more to that point where they could do that. But for what I would like them to add rather than fix, I think it would be a great way to introduce, and they're never going to do this, but more than 5-man parties. For some you can have tiers, or not tiers of fractals. You can have tiers, you can say I'm doing 5-man fractals, and that gives you the current 12 fractals or whatever we have, and then there's 10-man fractals. That 10 or 12 or 14 or 16 or whatever, that works sort of like the Deep and Urgaz's Warren. And playing off of that, they could then bring some of these elite areas from Guild Wars 1 into Guild Wars 2, and or awesome historical events from Guild Wars 1, or just from the lore that we don't have any event for, kind of like the bonus mission pack did. And they could have those be repeatable content that has cool rewards, that's a way of adding in all these crazy events like the Fall of Abaddon. All those things, when they talked about how fractals could be anything, anywhere, anytime, playing as any character, that's always had that appeal of you could do all of those things. But unfortunately, I guess they haven't added that many new fractals, and so I feel like there's a lot of untapped potential in there. So that's what I would add to fractals, and Evie and Washed already covered pretty perfectly what I would change in fractals as they currently stand.
You actually took my left field idea.
I knew it. I knew that that's
Nice
what you were
work.
going to say.
So what I've been, and I really hope if anyone likes this idea, write it up, throw it into the CDI, because it's the only way that ArenaNet's ever going to actually be like, oh, this is something people want. First of all, instead of having fractals you have the RNG fractal, which I think should be which I think is fine, existing. I don't mind how it deals out those, but what I would like is the ability to, for a lesser reward, choose a specific fractal. You just say, I want to run X fractal, and you pick it, and then it has that diminishing returns until you run another fractal and another fractal, and once you've completed maybe 4 fractals, then it unlocks boss fractals or something. I don't know how that would work, but I'd like to be able to pick a fractal and just run that one, because maybe you like that one. Or you want to introduce someone and you're like, well, I really don't want you to have to go through Dredge on your first run ever through fractals, because that's just gonna suck. Yeah. So...
yeah, welcome to the game.
Yeah, welcome to the game. Welcome to getting
Or
pissed
back
off.
when Triv and I first started doing fractals, we'd take new people, like our friends, and we'd always get Volcano and Dredge at the same time, and we're just like, we're so sorry.
Oh,
and Cliffside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, so I'd like to see that. What I'd also like to see is large player fractals, basically an elite zone like the Underworld. You could call it a raid, but I always liked how Guild Wars 1 did it versus the World of Warcraft system, where World of Warcraft you go in and there's a boss over there, there's a boss over there, there's a boss over there, and there's nothing going on. There's just a bunch of mobs, so you kill the mobs, and maybe the mobs have a weird mechanic, but there's nothing. They eventually started adding like storyline and like some events that would go on, and essentially dynamic events, or not even dynamic events, but events in the game where you were like escorting and that sort of thing. And what I'd like to see is something like that, where you get to you maybe enter into the fractal, and it's a scalable because Arena already has the code for this, so you can join in with 5. But let's say George wants to run the fractal. He shows up and says, "What's everyone up to?" And you're like, "Oh, we're running fractals, and we're running the 5 to 20 man fractal." And he's like, "Oh, can I join?" And you're like, "Yeah, sure. We've got another 15 slots open." And so as people show up throughout the night, you just start adding people into your fractal, and they can come and they can join the guild, and bosses and stuff scale, and you still can have very tightly designed content because you're designing from 5 to 20 people, and still have some very functional and like add multiply mechanics. Maybe if you have to hold a point with 5 people, you now have to hold like 3 points with 15, something like that. And
That's
I
going
think
to be way harder to do it that way, though, than to just say you have to have increments of 5, or like these are the 10-man fractals, or these are the 15-man fractals. Like,
yes, but
I think that could be a cool separate idea, but I do think that the game could really benefit from having designed specifically X number of players larger than 5 content, because...
Yeah,
I don't know.
I like the idea, though, of the scalable, simply because it really fits with the core design philosophy of Guild Wars 2. That whether or not we've stuck to it or not, I don't know. But it's the concept of you get in and you play with your friends, and there's nothing... I mean, the problem with hard numbers that I find, especially with, like, when I was raiding in WoW, when I was any other game, is I would show up, I'd be ready, and I'd get booted because someone who was better would show up, even though he was half an hour late. And so they'd be like, "Nope, sorry, you're out. He signed up earlier than you did," stuff like that. Or I was on the reserve team. And so things like that would happen. And it's just because I was not in a great raiding guild, so they needed everyone that they could that was functional to actually clear the content.
There's a certain scalability factor at which, to like, designing difficult content, there's only so much that you can scale it before it feels surgy, or like you're having no impact on the fight. And it's very hard to make a fight that scales actually well, other than just having more hit points. And it's doubly hard to have one where you actually increase the number of mechanics that you have to do. Like your example of saying, well, you've got to have 5 people on the point versus you've got to have 5 people on 4 points. Like, it's really hard to design content like that is scalable and actually difficult. And I think one of the biggest complaints that we've seen about Guild Wars 2 across the whole spectrum of people that play is that there just isn't enough content that actually requires good teamwork. And with any kind of pugging or scaling numbers, it's going to be almost impossible to design it past what we already have. And they have gotten better with some things, but even the Marionette, you see huge problems with. Like, well, that platform blows. I guess 20 of us just got hosed. And...
But if you have 20 people, if it's 5 to 20, like, if it's reasonably small numbers, I feel like you could still design some level where it's like, okay, we have this scalability, but it's still designed around...
With that, you have to have mechanics.
Right.
That allow for that scaling. Like, your example of having more points with more people is actually a really poor example, because what if you have 16 people or 17 people? It's set up at increments of 5. If you have 18, does that mean you have 4 points and 1 point has less than 5? Or do you have 3 points and each of them takes 6?
And then you add an extra champion or something.
Yeah, but that's not as challenging as you could make a dedicated 15-person instance.
It's true.
Like, because if we look back to Guild Wars 1 with some of those elite areas, like, you start out in separate parties and then you merge together, and I would be much more interested in a fight where they say there are 3 parties in this. There are always 3 parties in this fractal, and there are parts where you have to split up, and you don't have to be split up by party. Like, you could... Like, you self-split, but you have to have 15 people effectively to make this happen, and you can split off to do separate objectives at the same time, and then have parts where you can have, like it was at oh gosh, what was that mission? In Guild Wars in
Factions.
factions, where
Yeah,
you
that's
have
what I was totally thinking.
the two sides that have to
Yeah.
have to keep their guys together, and you meet Vizuna Square. There we
Yeah,
go.
Vizuna Square.
And like, so you have these like crazy epic fights with a bunch of people that are kind of like the battle for LA is right now, and then you can also split out and do separate parts where you have to split up, kind of like people did in Urgaz's, or in the different elite areas, and that's going to be almost impossible to make that well in a variable number of player situation, and it's much easier to design if you say it requires.
And
15
that's what
players.
Guild Wars was good at as
Yeah.
far as their content.
Guild Wars 1 had a lot of that, and there's a lot of content that's already scalable in Guild Wars 2, and I think to a certain extent it would behoove them to have some more content that has a little bit harder, like you just need this many people. But I do think it is important to have that be a lower number of people than most other games, because what Eric's talking about is a very real thing. To have massive scheduling commitments and massive like, oh, well, he's my friend and he's a little bit better than you, so I'm just going to boot you because we had to wait for half an hour to get enough people. But I feel like 10 or 15 people is a much better number for that in general than a lot higher. And 15's pushing it. 15's definitely pushing it. But at the very least, there's no Holy Trinity system where,
Right.
where
not
you're
dependent on, I need a
competing.
tank.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a difficult question, and they don't want to. I mean, they've said repeatedly that they basically have no interest in having a party size over 5 or anything like that. So I don't think we're ever going to see it anyway. But I think the game would really benefit from having some content like that. That is just sort of that's its own thing. It's just like Fractals. If Fractals had its rewards done a little bit better, like I don't care if people have fractal weapons. That doesn't make me like super jealous. But people that like fractal weapons like to get fractal weapons. And if they had the same thing with a rating system where it was like, if you like rating, here's your rating rewards, and they're not better, but they're just a type of content that you can get if you like it. And if you don't like it, that's okay, because there's tons of other stuff in the game for you. I think that would be great.
So one thing that World of Warcraft did with its rewards, and I think that's something that ArenaNet could probably learn from, is that at the end of dungeons, it had a pool of things that you knew you could get. So let's say you complete, like, this fractal. You are going to know that one person is going to get a fractal weapon, one person might get an ascended weapon. You know that there will be at least one useful thing that drops from the chest. And instead of it being, you may not see it, but someone at least in your party is going to get that. I would like to see them add that in, where it's like, you open the chest, and the chest, they roll your entire party's loot roll, essentially, and then they divvy it out. Internally, without us ever seeing it. So it still functions like it currently does, but it guarantees that there is a good reward at the end. And if you're running with a team of people, then you can be like, oh, cool, you got this? Okay, well, if we run it again, oh, cool, I got this. I would also like to see them dropping tier 6 mats and ectoplasm.
That would be fine.
Just like in any of the elite stuff in Guild Wars, when you open a chest, there's a chance of something awesome, or in-game chest is guaranteed like ectos and stuff.
I personally would prefer a system that's more a hybrid of what you described and how Guild Wars 2 does it, because that's an RNG system, and even if somebody's guaranteed to have it, like if you're that guy that doesn't get it over and over, like if you have to run something 100 or 200 times because it's always an X% chance and you're just not that lucky guy, or there's 2 items that you need from a given raid and you keep getting the same one over and over and over and over again, I hate that kind of system. I refuse to do that kind of progression system, which is why fractals are already so frustrating. Is that, I mean, yeah, it's not guaranteed,
get that
but
chance. Like you're not getting anything. You can run an entire fractal run and get blues and greens the entire way through.
And it doesn't, yeah, and I don't care if Washed gets his ascended item at the end, and I could have gotten it every time I did it. If I have to do it 50, 60, 70 times and I still don't get it, that's going to make me incredibly angry. And I know a lot of people in my guild that have done fractals hundreds of times, and they have gotten 0 ascended weapon drops.
But there's a chance
there's
that
other
no
people
one
that have done it
will...
once or twice.
But then but what's even more frustrating is there's a chance that no one will get anything. Your entire group could theoretically go through a level 50 fractal
But I don't care if somebody else gets
and
it
get
if I never
all
get it.
blues. But if you're running with your friends, I mean, there's a point where maybe they can pass it to you. Maybe if it's not soul bound, they can, or account bound, they can pass it to you. If you can put that functionality in, like
So now we're back to need or greed. Like, I hate that system too. I think one of the greatest things Guild Wars has done is have individualized loot, where you, and that's why we have so much account and character bound stuff. Is that, it's account bound on acquire, but that's because you taking it does not remove Eevee's chance of getting it. It does not remove Wash's chance of getting it. It doesn't remove your chance of getting it. It's everybody has their own loot roll, and everybody could get the same thing or not, but it's not one item for 10 or 15 people. It's everybody gets X percent. Similarly, you could have a run where 4 people get ascended items at the end. And that is a unique thing in Guild Wars 2's system that most other games don't have that kind of thing. And the more players you have for your raid,
I like how you
the
just
more frustrating
basically
it gets.
named a statistical impossibility.
4 people getting an ascended item at the end?
Yeah.
You've never seen like 3 or 4 people get a ring in a high-level fractal?
But
I
that
totally
doesn't-
have.
Okay, well, yeah.
That's
Okay, fine. Yeah, but it's usually like a useless ring. It's like, hey, we're gonna give you like.
That's a completely separate
still a
problem.
ring.
Yeah.
That's a completely separate problem.
And
that's still going to exist in your system where there's multiple things that are guaranteed, but you don't need all of them.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand
That's a
what
real
Eric's
deep
saying,
issue, though.
and I do agree because at this point, I mean, basically, the odds of getting those items right now is so horribly low.
Abysmally low.
It's I don't understand why they even bothered. I mean, 0.001% of getting an item. I mean, really? Out of the 3 or 4 million people that are playing the game, so one person is gonna get that.
And some people like that, but there's two markets that are not ever going to overlap.
If it's a mini pet, I understand.
Right.
Something else.
Gear though?
Yeah, that seems a bit weird. But we're gonna move on from that.
Precursors.
And we're going. Yeah. Oh my goodness, precursors are just
Don't
insane.
even get me started on that.
I know.
So,
It's the same thing.
a few quick questions. We've got to wrap up fairly quickly. I think Wash has to go to work at some point. Make the money for his family. So really quick on this. Keep it, under 5 minutes, please. League system, for example, in SPVP. So like you have in StarCraft, any of those sorts of really PvP-centric games where you have basically like gold, bronze, silver, diamond, platinum, group bear, stair league, which is what I would be in. What would you guys like to see from a league system in SPVP? For those of you guys that actually care. Washed? Apathy? Rybach? What would you like to
Let
see?
Evie go.
Evie, go for it.
I'll keep it short, but let him go first.
Okay.
Okay, first of all, a very substantial visual matchmaking rating that people can see, a numerical one, so that they can see how they are progressing through this league.
Your
Second-
ELO rating.
Basically. Second, have more than 3.
More than 3 what?
More
Oh,
than 3
leagues.
leagues.
Yeah.
There's a reason why StarCraft and League and all these other games that have similar systems go from bronze to diamond rather than just gold.
Right.
Because with 3, the spread is still too much. I would actually go as far to say that with a game like Guild Wars, they need 5.
At least.
At least.
Really?
Yeah.
At least.
Well, and in League of Legends, they have, it's like, you have gold 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Like, there are
Mhm.
effectively 30 leagues or 40
Exactly.
leagues.
Oh, wow.
And they're all in the gold, but you are only anyway, but Go on.
To go further into how League does it,
Yeah.
each league, so to speak, I mean, there's technically only like the 4, but each one has its own subdivisions, which is where the numerical value comes in for matchmaking rating. And you're only matched with people very close to your rating.
Maybe a little bit higher,
Another
maybe a
thing-
little bit lower, but
But generally, it's pretty much the same. Minimize resets. Every time there is a league reset, the new players get completely steamrolled for
Yeah.
a good month and a half.
It's true.
Yeah.
It sucks. I cry.
So that's another thing. Either that or have systems that will carry over from like one season into the next if they decide to do seasons. And lastly, have a very visual way of representing in all parts of the game, no matter what you're playing, what league you stand in on a consistent basis. It can be armor, it can be weapons, it can be a specific tag that goes over your head, something.
Hey,
Town clothes.
they turn your character blue.
They turn your character blue. Your Zodiac armor skin changes. So the stuff that you have to buy in game, buy with money, changes so that you can
Sorry,
show
couldn't
off
resist.
your elo rating. Okay, very cool, Evie. We're okay. Grybach? Similar?
Yeah,
Different?
I agree with Evie. I would say my only thing that I would add to what he said is that you absolutely uncategorically need to have a still decently made unranked system, because there are people like me that I love competition, but it makes me tilt so hard when I know that I'm losing a ranking, like when I know that I am losing points, especially in a team-based game, and that's why LoL's community is so toxic in so many ways, is that some dumbass can lose you the entire game and you can't do anything about it. And when you know that you're getting hosed, like you have to work so hard in games that are good to go up the ranks, and then one jackass can just make you lose points. That's incredibly frustrating, and so I play unranked usually in those games because I at least can shrug it off a little bit better. And even in League of Legends, the unranked system actually has an elo. Like there is actually a hidden elo in the unranked system that it doesn't show you, and so you don't get angry about losing it, but it still matches you mostly against people of approximately your skill level. And I was a pretty good elo in unranked. Like there are sites that you can check your hidden elo, and I was actually pretty high in it. But
Does that
I just-
defeat the
playing
purpose
ranked
of
just makes me so angry. Like it just makes me so angry, especially when you get to those promotion matches. I have so many friends that are like, I'm in a promotion match to go up a league, and two D-bags AFK'd and I lost, and now I have to win 3 more games before I can promo match again.
brutal?
I'm like,
Yeah.
these
I-
are
All
fighters.
right, so
I have a friend that
Evie?
literally has spent a week trying to get into gold after
Oof, yeah.
losing one match.
that sucks. Well, we're gonna keep moving really quickly because Washed is getting even closer. One thing that you would carry over from Edge of the Mist to Dub v Dub, under 10 seconds. Washed. What would you take from Edge of the Mist into normal Dub v Dub?
Mob design.
Mob design. Evie,
Make those things actually
Mob
count.
design.
Grybach.
Mob design.
All right, so that's what we say is bring the PvE into Dub v Dub. Bonus. They're doing a bonus section. They asked people what is the least functional class in Guild Wars 2, and apparently
And it was an overwhelming ranger.
Yeah.
I'm
Ranger,
confused.
Ranger.
Rangers are on top tier SPVP teams. They are reasonably useful in Dub v Dub, and there are quite a few people who do very well in PvE with them. So why are people
Petting zoo
freaking
cough.
out about the Ranger?
Because it is so tied to AI. That's literally the only reason.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't have
I
any problems
refuse to
playing
play
my
a ranger
Ranger.
until I can do so without a pet.
You can
That
just
never
put your
happened.
pet on heal and ignore it, and you still do reasonable damage. I mean, longbow rangers right now with
I
their
personally would
stacking.
put engineers at worse, but that's just me.
there's-
They have some good builds, but they have too many skills that don't do jack squat, and too many
I-
traits that don't do jack squat.
I think
too many
is it
professional
just because
mechanics that don't do
everyone's
jack
running barebow? Is that and they're like barebow's not effective enough. It's not invincible, so clearly it's the worst. Because I played barebow, I enjoyed barebow. Yes. Is it great?
just a bad
No.
player.
No, it's not.
Okay, you're passionate about what's the worst profession, Eric?
It-
If it's not ranger, what is it? Because there's got to be a worst.
Well, it's either going to be thief because they suck at range and their class just has so many weird things. But even them, they have their advantages. But I think that their builds are too niche. Then you also have
Here's the thing
engineer,
with
which is
thieves, though.
effective.
Here's
But
the thing with thieves, though.
I think engineer and
the thief
probably one of the weaker
is
ones.
a very, very visually. What's the word I'm looking for?
Pimp.
No.
they do look awesome. I will
Look
agree.
Awesome.
Okay.
But
in
they do
PvP,
nothing while looking awesome. It's like normally looking awesome.
In PvP, just as an example, a thief can be really ineffective, but he will look like he is doing something very, very well.
Yeah. So that's the thing is I'd say that there are definitely classes. I think rangers are they're tough. They can do reasonable damage at range, kite you, and then they have 2 weapon sets melee. Like all of their weapon sets have a use except for torch maybe. So I don't get this whole like ranger hate that showed up on the forums. I was like, how does that even?
You've played a minion master.
Yeah.
And I will almost quote you with this, that Minion Master is good when it works.
Oh yeah, straight up. It's fantastic when it works.
With Rangers, you're more likely to have a pet that works than, say, a Minion Master.
Way
but
more,
when
because
it
you can hit
doesn't work-
attack. You can actually hit a button and it guarantees that it will attack.
Exactly. But when it doesn't work horribly, so to speak.
Well, I mean, it doesn't look like anything's happening, but you're still like, I can still deal damage with my weapon sets. A Minion Master has to load up on minions so much that he loses all of his utilities and functionality. Whereas a Ranger, if the pet's like broken, it's like, I still have all of these other tools.
The difference is the pet is a guaranteed thing you have to deal with as a Ranger, no matter what. With a Necromancer, you don't have to deal with minions. You can
Okay.
choose not to.
It's true.
But engineers have to deal with their profession mechanic of having no weapon swaps and having tool skills that
Yeah.
Exactly.
may or may not do
Oh yeah, no, I
anything.
would say NGs have a lot
I think
more
NGs are
difficult of a road to
My-
hoe. Oh.
My vote was Engineer, Thief, and then Ranger.
Washed, what would you vote for?
I would agree, I think, with Evie and Grybach both, that Ranger definitely, Thief definitely, and Envy. I mean, I've tried playing an Envy a few times, and honestly, I get to maybe level 20, and I'm like, screw it, and I delete the character. Because it's just not fun.
Yeah.
I don't know how people do it. It's spam, and stuff doesn't work
What
right.
you do is you
and-
pretend that the elixir kit is effective, and then you run around using that, and you're like, I'm being helpful, but you're really not.
But until support actually becomes better in the game,
I just play it by lying to myself.
Anyway.
That's how I
Alright,
play the engineer.
I need to get going.
All
too,
right, so
actually,
we are going to finish off with a really quick news thing. They are moving away from personal story, 2 people standing and talking to each other. Go ahead and check that link. Check that out on relicsoforr.com. The end of 2-person cinematics, I do believe is what it's called. Written by our very own Washed. And now we are going to move into Cast, the podcast about other casts in the style of cast something cast. Spirits has it way
no,
better.
No.
God, it's so close.
No, hold
So
on.
close.
Oh, Evie's got this.
And now it's time for Cast, the podcast about other podcasts and the style of other podcasts. Today on Cast,
All right, that was close.
visit the
That
Northern
wasn't
Shiver Peaks
quite it.
community page at northernshiverpeaks.org. We have found some wonderful Orient armor cosplay by female. The mumbo jumbo. I said that in the wrong order. There is some wonderful female Orient armor cosplay done by the same cosplayer that did the Divinity's Reach armor. And there's links in the show notes. We will also put those in the chat later on. There is a wonderful Tumblr post by the user Vlubius about how the Harbinger isn't really the Harbinger. Nice little theory there. And you can tune into Saturday Morning Sandbox here at 8 a.m. Pacific to 10 a.m. Pacific every Saturday, of course, blah. And Relics of Orr has been running the Underworld.
We ran the
So,
Underworld, and
more-
hopefully we'll be running it more.
more on that later as we continue to do that.
All right, and that is our show for the evening. Grybach has already bowed out, so we will see you guys in game, and we will also go into a post show. If you would like to follow us, you can follow us at our various Twitter handles. I am at Shongaku. Wash is at Washed. Grybach is he's washed in blood. Grybach is at King Street Grybach, and Evie is at Evenus. You can also check out all of the amazing posts at relicsoforr.com. You can email us if you have any questions or comments. Go ahead and send us an email, relicsoforr@gmail.com, and we will possibly read your email on the show if we ever get one. We did receive one once, and we read it on the show. It was like this massive post. It was like
Christmas.
It was like a 10-page article that someone wrote. We were like, oh my
It
goodness,
literally
it's
was
so
like
long.
Christmas. It was shaped like a Christmas tree.
So long, but it was awesome. And so, yeah, feel free to email us. We love hearing from you guys. And that is pretty much everything. I will be doing a show this Saturday, which I will be tweeting. It will be about EverQuest Landmark, EverQuest Next Landmark, which is pretty awesome. So, from all of us here at Relics of Orr, have a good week, and we will see you guys in game. Bye.